compassion in the treatment of gambling disorder practices for our clients and ourselves. Just a little bit of background. I'm going to try to make this quick so we can get to Dr. Lori Rugle. But my name is Alessandro Ciampancini, and I'm the president of Orgo Branding Company, a cause marketing agency that has had the honor of partnering with Ohio for Responsible Gambling over the past 5+ years, developing many of our state's responsible gambling campaign initiatives. Many of you may know our work and have partnered with us on our statewide responsible gambling campaign efforts for Get Set Before You Bet, as well as our adult to youth influencer campaign, Change the Game Ohio, both of which were created with the intention to help educate and raise awareness around problem gambling for at-risk populations and influencers who can help create positive change in their communities. As many of you know, and have partnered with us already throughout the years, each campaign offers assets for your organization to use in your local outreach efforts, providing templates that we are able to co-brand for you for free, as we're commissioned by the state to do so, and are here to help whenever you need for your next local and regional campaign efforts. I encourage you to visit the community toolkit at beforeyoubet.org, where you can get a password to see the different toolkits and assets that we offer, as well as changethegameohio.org, and you can browse different PSAs we have, advertisements, educational materials, and you can even check out our new social media guide, which actually I presented about last week if you were able to attend that session, as well as some new toolkits we just implemented into the site, including our online gaming toolkit for adults launched this month. We are always happy to help when it comes to locating specific assets or helping to talk through various media strategies. And we will help you reformat and co-brand these assets for free. It's just as simple as emailing our media planner, Beth Burson. Many of you have already worked with Beth. She's happy to give any insight, instruction, guidance, but also coordinate with our creative team if you need any additional messaging, your logo implemented into any of these tools. And you can contact Beth at info@beforeyoubet.org or beth@origobranding.com. We look forward to connecting with you at some point in the future as we work together to advance our mission for responsible gambling in the state of Ohio. So now I'm proud to have the honor of introducing our speaker for today, someone that I myself am a huge fan of, Dr. Lori Rugle, PhD, credentials including International Certified Gambling Counselor 2, Board Approved Clinical Consultant, and International Certificate in Gaming Disorder. Dr. Rugle brings 36 years of experience in the field of problem and responsible gambling, including treatment, prevention, research, and responsible gambling to her work. She has managed problem gambling programs within the Veterans Administration in the private sector and within state systems. She has also provided consultation and training on gambling disorders throughout the United States for the military and internationally. She is a white privileged, boomer generation, cisgendered, heterosexual Buddhist woman of biological and adoptive Eastern European ancestry who currently lives in Ohio on the ancestral land of the Erie and Iroquois people and has given up the idea of retirement. She is focusing her work on training, consulting, and supervision and is a firm believer in learning never ends, as she recently obtained her international certificate in gaming disorder and has completed a 2-year course in deepening meditation teaching skills. So now it's my privilege to hand over, I believe, the virtual or metaphorical mic to Dr. Lori Rugle. Dr. Rugle, please take it away.
Great, thank you. Can you hear me? Am I unmuted?
You sound great.
Okay, great. Well, welcome everyone. And you know, mindfulness is very good for those of us in the field of gambling disorder in the month of March. I realize it gives new meaning to the term March Madness for most of us. So being in the final week and a half as things are settling down, may be a good time to engage in some mindfulness. So just take a moment, if you may have already been on your screens for most of the morning, and look away from your screen, look outdoors, stretch, get your body ready to sit and come in for a landing. It's springtime, and the geese in the little pond at the end of my neighborhood are coming into the pond every morning for a landing. And they just settle in comfortably in the water and take their seat. So just take a moment to take that breath, let yourself settle in, move around any area of your body to loosen and soften, and just be as comfortable as possible for the next however many minutes. So you can listen, participate, resonate in any way that happens for you with the words that we'll share. And just thank you so much for being willing to be present for one of my favorite topics. Beginner's mind. The older I get, the more important I realize this perspective is, when I was a kid, I would hear some old folks say, the older I get, the less I know. And I would kind of think, well, then what's the point? And, certainly as we get older, we learn a lot of stuff. We fill our minds with a lot of factoids, a lot of information. But the important thing is approaching all of that information, all of that cognitive stuff that we're so good at, all of that problem solving, information gathering stuff that our minds do all of the time. But approaching that from a constantly fresh perspective, realizing that, I don't know necessarily. I often have groups do an exercise where we go around and look at everything we can name in the room, like file cabinet and chair and computer, but then look at it and think to yourself for a moment, but I don't really know what this computer is. I sure as heck don't know how it works, maybe except for a select few out there. And then becoming more curious, more interested, more engaged with wanting to understand more deeply rather than assuming I already know, so I don't need to understand anything else. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the experts, there are few. So it's kind of working backwards, um, especially in our world turned upside down, that we haven't been given any map for. When we're working with clients, we can often think, well, I know about coping skills, I know how to help this person. But with COVID being part of our reality, nobody told us how to cope with this. So we're all in the same boat. We're all sharing the same confusion, the same uncertainties, the same vulnerabilities. So how do we help our clients that we thought we knew how to help in this new upside down, inside out world with all its many challenges? One way of thinking about this is looking at what really affects therapeutic outcome. And there's a lovely new book out by Bill Miller called Effective Therapists, not effective therapies, not is cognitive behavioral better than motivational interviewing, better than psychodynamic, better than whatever. Those are the types of therapy, and we've spent millions, probably billions of dollars researching, is one type of therapy better than another? And even the largest studies we've concocted kind of come out saying, well, they all work about the same. So the type of therapy isn't as significant as what we've looked at, what used to be called the common factors, those that transcend particular brand of therapy, but have a lot to do with therapeutic relationship. And so when we talk about mindfulness practice or compassion practices, what we're really talking about is affecting the therapeutic relationship and creating more effective therapists. And mindfulness doorway and the compassion doorway are nice doorways and windows into that process. So mindfulness, we talk about mindfulness all the time. We hear it all the time. Let's be mindful of has become part of our vocabulary in the world as it is. But what are we really talking about? It's a mental consciousness awareness discipline, the intentional. I'm choosing to do this. I'm wanting to do this. I'm setting the intention on cultivating, developing non judgmental, not non discriminatory, non judgmental, non self referential, not based in my small, narrow little ego needs, not relating to attachment to who I am and what I think, non self referential, caring attention. Now, some of these words my teachers and I have added in because caring didn't used to be a part of that. It was all this mental discipline, and we're such a mental cognitive culture that made sense. We can kind of think our way through this. No, we have to bring the heart in, you know, the language of the Buddha. Bodhicitta. Citta is a word that means heart mind, no difference, no separation. It's one word that means both. And that's what we're aiming for in these practices. We don't meditate to improve ourselves. We meditate to end our compulsive striving to do everything better. The quote from Chris Germer, who's one of my favorite writers and thinkers and practitioners in terms of self-compassion practices. So this isn't about getting better. It's not about that striving. I'm going to get it. I'm going to do it. We meditate to just be okay with what is and see that more clearly, wisdom and compassion brought together. So compassion begins with empathy, and we'll talk a little bit more in a bit on the difference between empathy and compassion. So that's the foundation for compassion. I feel your pain. I'm with you. I'm resonating, I'm feeling what you're feeling. I'm seeing it from your perspective. But that's not where we stop. So we don't just see another person's pain, jump in the pit and suffer in that with them. That's not sustainable for the other person or for us. But we meet that suffering with love, with kindness, with friendliness, with gentleness and tenderness. The ability to be present in the face of suffering, combined with the desire and the intention and motivation, the effort to want to relieve that suffering, to bring an end to that suffering. Developing the muscle, because this is warrior practice. This is not for wimps. Often we think about compassion as only gentle compassion, the gentle hand of compassion, the soft hand of compassion. And we don't see the firm and fierce side of compassion, the warrior compassion of really being able to sit there in the face of suffering of ourselves, our clients, our families, our communities, and our world, and to work to bring an end to that suffering. Not only have we seen all the suffering of COVID in the past year, but we've, had so many unfortunate opportunities of seeing the suffering of racism, of othering people, making somebody other than me and less than me, and seeing our own racism in ways we never thought possible, and the pain and the suffering that's involved in that, and the courage to sit with it, to understand it, to see it, to hear it, to feel it without running away, without closing our eyes, without shutting off our hearts, with the intention to bring an end to that suffering by understanding it more deeply. The more we can have compassion for ourselves, the more we can be present for our clients and keep our hearts open to our clients and be truly present. The more we are wholeheartedly present, the better we are at our craft, to allow our clients to feel felt. That is such a healing process, to have another person get you from your perspective, perhaps not agree with you, not condone what you're doing, not wanting to stop there, but I get you in this moment, setting the foundation for the causes and conditions for the environment that can be conducive to change. And this is a lovely video, but in the interest of time, I'll show you the first picture. So you can go on YouTube, find this guy. When you type in the fly, you may get Jeff Goldblum, but noodle around on YouTube and you'll find that image. And it's a wonderful image of what meditation is really about. Mosquitoes, when we sit down on the cushion and we're going to be quiet for 5 minutes or 1 minute, and everything starts buzzing because that's what our brains do. And what do we do with that? Just sit there and let our brains buzz? How do we accept and let the buzzing settle to become a nanosecond of quiet on a good day? So check out that video that sort of depicts that process of coming back again and again to disciplining our unruly minds, our undisciplined mind, and gently inviting our mind back to just this breath, just this moment. And we could just take a moment to do that. Wherever your brain has just been, notice that. Oh, look at where it went. It was storytelling, it was planning, it was thinking about my grocery list, it was thinking about all the clients I'm not seeing this morning and the work piling up. Okay, I see you, my mind, my busy, hyperactive mind. Come sit with me for a moment. Come refocus on just this moment, these words, these sounds, these slides. And notice the shift in that embodied experience. Had your shoulders gotten a bit tense? Had your jaw become a little clenched? Can you let go of any muscles that even got tight in the last few minutes? And just take a deep breath, let it go, and relax into this next moment. So, to kind of summarize in an amazingly brief fashion, jumping to the conclusion, mindfulness-based intervention, MBIs, have been found as effective as treatment as usual with approaches such as CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, relapse prevention therapies, motivational interviewing, and mindfulness-based interventions consistently show neurophysiological changes that you might not see in those other approaches, such as decreased responses to stress, decreased responses to painful stimuli, when you show a research subject these horrible images and things like that. evidence that MBIs contribute to improvement on secondary outcome variables, not just the targeted outcome variables, but secondary symptoms such as trauma symptoms, emotional regulation, depression, and anxiety. So even if you're not targeting those, there are ripples from mindfulness-based interventions that seem to have these secondary benefits. And the consistent recommendation in a review of all these studies was that the best outcomes may be from combining the treatment we usually do with mindfulness-based interventions. So coming at CBT from a mindfulness perspective, we can do that. We don't have to throw out what we're comfortable and familiar with, but we can deepen it. We can use it together with that mindful perspective that we'll be talking more about. So, with mindfulness based recovery promotion, and there's a lovely manual by Sarah Bowen and Neha Chawla um, that really breaks this down. And coming at it from a perspective of curiosity. So when we look at the traditional things that we might from a CBT or relapse prevention perspective, of looking at internal and external triggers, it's not about, getting rid of them, avoiding the triggers, or just saying, well, what am I going to do differently? It's about eliciting an attitude of curiosity towards those triggers, not avoidance, not fear, not I've got to get out of here, not I've got to shut this down, but isn't that interesting? There I see is a trigger because I started thinking about my gambling. And now this is advanced practice. This isn't session one practice. But after we've built a foundation from which I can safely be curious and investigate so I can understand more deeply and explore and strengthen my understanding and awareness of what's going on in me so that I can accept, oh, yeah, that's a trigger, and this is my embodied reaction to that. And I can choose what to do with that. I don't have to respond to that. I can become more tolerant. I don't judge myself for being triggered. It's going to happen. It happens to all of us about something all the time, every day. And realize I'm not alone. This isn't just about little Lori sitting here. This is how people respond to things that trigger their reactions, trigger their urges and cravings, whether it's to go gamble, to have a drink, to use a drug, to eat a tub full of Haagen-Dazs, to overwork, whatever it may be. So we share a common humanity. And let me just say this really is a common practice process for all of us. And we'll talk more about that. But, why this is for ourselves as well as our clients is this all applies to all of us. We may not meet criteria for a formal addictive disorder, but we all have urges and cravings to do things that aren't the most healthy for us. We can relate. We can understand from our own perspective. So in the mindfulness-based recovery promotion or relapse prevention manual, they start with recognizing these automatic pilot responses, these urges and cravings that arise. My initial habitual response to a stimulus. We all do that. Somebody says a word and it's the word that always gets us going. And my button gets pushed and I'm getting angry. And I'm starting to form a resentment because I'm on automatic pilot. I'm not creating a space. I'm coming at it from that self-referential little Lori perspective. rather than being able to have a different relationship that allows me to be curious and interested and non-reactive to what's going on. And that's a relationship of curiosity rather than reactivity. So just helping people be aware of their triggers and their craving and not judging that. Gold star for being aware. Make much of that. You know, a day ago weren't aware of that, or a minute ago weren't aware of that, but now you see it. Now you can make some choices. And we begin to practice mindfulness in easy ways, in the shallow end of the pool. Pick something that you can do more thoughtfully, more mindfully, with more heart, mind, feeling. How does this feel in my body? Not just how do I think about this activity, how can I be aware of the full embodied experience of brushing my teeth, of taking a bite of food, of washing the dishes, of cleaning out the cat litter, of walking up, whatever you pick one thing. And how does your relationship to that activity change when you apply the perspective of mindfulness? And then expanding that out, how can we be more mindful in more challenging situations? Creating the space to see, hear, feel that situation and accept it, and then decide what would be a skillful behavior to respond to this situation. Now, again, this takes time and practice, but you can see how we're breaking down the concept of mindfulness from basic to easy to creating a space to being more confident in my ability to slow down. And with our clients with a gambling disorder where impulsiveness is often so much of a factor, that slowing down practice, just taking one breath, just not sitting cross-legged, on a cushion for hours on end, contemplating the wall or your navel or whatever, you know, just one breath to give yourself a bit more space before knee-jerk habitual responding kicks in. And then just noticing those thoughts, being interested and curious about the thoughts that pop in. Our minds are thought generating machines. They like to stay interested. They keep going and going and making up stories to keep interested. So many folks have commented on this, but if I could write down all the stories I make up in my head and sell them, they'd be better than any soap opera that's on TV. Our minds just create these fictions and these stories about all sorts of stuff that aren't necessarily helpful, that are often very painful. Stories about why I'm angry at you, why you're to blame for how my life is going, why I should resent the way you behave, why you're a bad person, why you're a scary person, why you're a harmful person. Think of all the stories that are out there and that are in our minds. You don't have to be quiet for too long before the stories start happening and you're off and running, just like, Alice down the rabbit hole. And when we can just see that, begin to see, that's my story of unworthiness, of undeservability. That's my story of holding on to resentment. That's my story of why I have to go gambling. And realize it's just a story. It's just a thought. It's not truth with a capital T. I see you, that story again. You're trying to catch me. I can put that book down. I can put it aside. I've read it too many times already. It's not helpful. I can feel what that story does in my body and get back to, okay, what's going on here? Has my breathing become a little shallow, a little constricted? Is my stomach churning? Am I gritting and grinding my teeth? And I recognize that connection. Story, discomfort, dis-ease. I can do something with this embodied feeling. I can breathe some gentleness, some comfort into what got stirred up by that storytelling. Is that how I want to feel? Is that story helping me accomplish the things I want to accomplish? Be the person I want to be? Create my own environment of safety, of calm, of settled, of grounded. So seeing those thoughts as thoughts, nothing that's controlling me, and then looking at my lifestyle and what's the balance there? Am I engaging in activities that are healthy, that are helpful, that allow me to take good care of myself so that I can do the things I want to do and be the person I want to be? Or is there imbalance there that needs some adjusting? And where do I get support for my recovery, for this continuing practice of mindfulness? It's not a Lone Ranger activity. In Buddhist traditions, the story is one of um, his followers asked the Buddha, of the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, the teachings, and the Sangha, the community, which of these is most important? And without hesitation, the Buddha said, the Sangha, the community of like-minded, caring individuals is the most important. And 12-step and self-help groups have known this for a long time, that community support to really establish the basis of a common humanity to keep us on track is so essential. And I love this poem by Thich Nhat Hanh, who's a quite old Vietnamese monk who has done a great deal of work bringing these practices into a way that those of us in Western cultures can understand more easily. And he's written lovely poetry. So, oh, you who are going in circles, please stop. What are you doing it for? I cannot be without going because I don't know where to go. That's why I go in circles. Oh, you who are going in circles, please stop. But if I stop going, I will stop being. Oh, my friend who is going in circles, you are not one with this crazy business of going in circles. You maybe enjoy going, but not going in circles. Where can I go? Go where you can find your beloved. Go where you can find yourself. And when I first read it, it spoke to me so much of the folks with addictive disorders who keep going around in those same circles, trying to find themselves, trying to find some ease and comfort and an end to suffering. But they keep going in those same circles. And our job is, let's stop this going in circles, recognizing that it's not working. And let's use some practices that can help you find the end to suffering or the reduction of suffering that you're looking for within yourself by loving yourself and finding a way of doing that. And one way is beginning to turn off autopilot so we're just not habitually responding in the same way over and over again. And Tara Brach has this an acronym, RAIN. Stop, recognize what's happening, see it for what it is. Allow things to be as they are. Accept that this is reality as it is. So many things I am powerless over, the serenity prayer in action. And then investigate. Isn't that interesting? How can I understand this better? How can I be a Columbo or a scientist investigating and exploring and looking at that from different angles and different perspectives with beginner's mind, and then feeling, the rattling that may come with this situation? And how can I nurture myself in this process? How can I comfort and take care of myself in this process? And from mindfulness-based relapse prevention, they use the acronym SOBER. Stop, pause, hold on, observe, just notice what's going on. Whew, take a breath and check out how that's landing here inside of you. Feel it. And then choose how to respond. And if you'll notice, one of the repeated refrains in this is, what is this embodied experience? Not what do you think about it? Not how do you rationalize it? Not how do you problem solve and think your way through this? Yes, recognize the thoughts, but let the wisdom and heartfelt reality of what's happening in the body inform us about what we really need in this situation in terms of nurturing, comforting, reducing our suffering, so that we come at it from a place of greater wisdom and clearer thinking. So always, okay, I noticed. And we usually forget to give ourselves any credit for that noticing. It usually goes right to self-criticism. Oh, I'm telling those stories again. What's wrong with me? When am I ever going to stop doing this? I'm just no good. I'm never going to be, our lovely inner critics that are so hyperactive and always willing to lend a hand, rather than, oh, storytelling. And appreciate that that's a mindful moment. I noticed that. Good for you. That's what you do. Okay. Come on back. Let it go. Release it. Good for you for noticing. Give yourself that gold mindfulness star and make much of it, because our brains are biased. As a survival mechanism, our brains were built and designed to notice problems, to notice if that's a snake behind that rock or a saber-toothed tiger behind that bush. And the people who noticed that survived. But now, if we go around thinking it's a snake behind every rock and a tiger behind every bush, that's not helpful. So appreciating that our automatic responses are programmed by these biased brains that are much more likely to see problems and negativities than to give ourselves credit or to see something wholesome and helpful and skillful in our behavior or the behavior of others. And just noticing that. One researcher said we have to combat these negative thoughts on a scale of 10 to 1. So we need to intentionally generate 10 positive, affirming, constructive, helpful thoughts for every negative thought we have. That sounds like pretty significant work based on, if your brain is like mine, the number of problematic, painful, critical, judgmental thoughts I have on a daily basis. Full-time work. And what we need to do to establish our baseline for all of this practice is just begin very concretely by creating a holding environment within ourselves. And it sounds really simple. It's, just take a moment here and check in. How's your holding environment? What's going on in there? And every practice, every session that I engage in of mindfulness practice starts out with reestablishing my holding environment. Not rushing, oh, let me get to the good stuff. Let me get to that investigation and deep insight. And no, back to basics, kiddo, back to beginner's mind. Let's just settle in. So I stretch out, I move around my body, I get into feeling what's going on. Hey, kiddo, what's going on in there? How's the heart mind doing? Where's the energy level? The mosquitoes buzzing in your brain, or is it like a troop of monkeys up there running around, chattering? Is there a feeling of agitation or restlessness? Or is there a casual sleepiness, drowsiness, dullness to the mind? Where can I loosen up, soften some muscles? Does the breathing need a bit more space in the upper body? Letting the front of the heart open up and soften just a bit more. And what does that feel like, to feel into that process? And as I may take a deeper than usual breath and just let that settle down, feeling the ground supporting me, supporting my base, settling into stability. And creating that space for calm, caring attention, in which I can invite my mind to take an interest in this breath, in this moment, as if it were the most amazing, awesome thing I could be doing. This caring curiosity about how I can allow just a bit of quiet steadiness, delightful contentment arise moment to moment. And then letting yourself return to being present here with us, with this presentation, just noticing what that little brief exercise may have felt like for you. This is my image of my holding environment, my favorite sleepy time bear. Tea canister image. Warmth and coziness and safety and just being at ease. So you may create or have your own images for that, but always starting there. That's the foundation that we're orienting towards as we begin this practice. And this is a practice to develop your own inner holding environment. And it's what we also do with our clients, create that holding environment, through our screens these days or in our offices, an environment in which safety can be present so that we can set the conditions to begin exploring the possibility of change towards increased well-being and decreased suffering. And once we have that holding environment, drop in kindness, friendliness, the heart of the practice. Sit as if sitting with my dearest friend. How would I hold my dearest friend in most comfort and ease? Or as if I was holding a child who was hurt or distressed and comforting them, or an injured pet, adding gentleness, softness, warmth, and strength. The strength that can allow for the opening up of some vulnerability. And then once we have our holding environment, okay, now let's get to the good stuff. Let's look at my most challenging feelings and my most difficult situations, and let's tackle those. I'm an overachiever here. No, we don't dive into the deep end right from there. But how do we create sustaining emotions, helpful feelings, feelings that can really comfort us, feelings like delight and playfulness, gratitude, generosity, kindness, friendliness, joy, aliveness, awe and wonder, like, oh, that's a gorgeous sunset. Oh my goodness. I just want to stay here watching this forever. What a lovely feeling that is. So nurturing, cultivating, helping these little seedlings of enjoyable, inspiring feelings to begin to grow. And in working with our clients, that's such a shift because this is what they've been looking for. They've been thinking that the gambling will get them these wonderful, happy, joyful feelings. and they've settled for excitement or this illusion of euphoria rather than joy in the small things. And when I hear or observe a client talking about, oh, I went for a walk and I saw the first daffodil blooming. Ah, yes, savor that. Again, notice that. Oh, that's joy. That's awe. Make much of that. Bookmark it so you can go back there and revisit it as something that can sustain you through more difficult times. Happiness, and even more importantly, perhaps a sense of contentment. This is okay. I can be okay with this. I can be content with life just as it is. And we intentionally help clients cultivate and notice and be aware of and make much of and bookmark these sustaining, recovery-oriented emotions. And just practice that. Ground, breathe, calm, settle, soothe. That's my mantra. As I move into more difficult situations, okay, I'm feeling a little off balance here, a little rattled, it's reverberating. I feel that energy building. Okay, ground, feel the stability of my feet on the floor, my butt in the chair. Take a breath, just one breath. Calm. Feel that calmness of that sleepy time tea package. Settle, let it settle down. Like sinking under the waves in a diving bell. Underneath the tumult, settle, let it settle down. And what would be soothing? A heart. A hand over my heart. An inner cup of tea, whatever that brings for you. And it just takes a moment to get that stability. And we talked about empathy, that sense of seeing the world, feeling the world from another's perspective as if it were my own. Loving kindness, wishing that others be happy and not suffer. Compassion, the wish that all sentient beings be free from suffering. A deep awareness of the suffering of oneself and other living beings, coupled with that wish and effort to alleviate the suffering. So, there's that action step involved in that. Sometimes I can do something, sometimes I can just wish it. And importantly, noting that even neuroscience points to empathy and compassion being processed in different areas of our brain. There's a lovely video by this monk who used to be the translator for the Dalai Lama. And they had him practice empathy, just feeling another's pain, seeing images and just getting into another's pain. And he said, stop. After a while, I can't stand this. It's too much. But then they said, well, okay, I know that was, can you practice compassion? And his answer was, oh, please. Because it's not staying in the pit with the suffering. It's building your way out of that pit and enlisting other parts of the brain to support and bring comfort and soothing and relief from that pain. So that's what we need to practice for ourselves in holding the pain of our clients and getting relief from that. So it's not compassion fatigue, it's empathy fatigue. And help our clients with that. So a brief compassion practice starts with mindfulness. And this is from Kristen Neff, who's one of the other main gurus of self-compassion practice. So we just start out being mindful of noticing the suffering. And we are not even good at that. At least I'm not. I was taught from the time I was a kid, just, stiff upper lip it. There are people starving on the other side of the world. What's your problem? Don't notice your own suffering. But that's not helpful. That's just stuffing it. Doesn't help. So notice it. Not have a pity party. That's something different. Just notice, oh, that hurts. And lean toward that pain, not run away from it in that kind, non judgmental way, bringing some curiosity. It's the opposite of avoidance, which many of our clients are engaged in, or over identification with that's my pain and I'm going to hold on to it. No, I'm suffering. And that's the pity party stuff. The next step, realizing I'm not alone. It's not to diminish my pain. Oh, what's your problem? Everybody is having a bad day. Get with it. No, it's realizing I'm not the only person. Again, the self-help groups. I'm not the only one who, I'm not the worst human being on the planet. Our own experience of suffering and imperfection and making mistakes is universal. Everybody is not the best version of themselves they put on Facebook or tweet about or whatever. That's not reality. The reality is we all got stuff going on in our lives that isn't perfect, is riddled with mistakes and is hurtful. It's the opposite of isolation and disconnection. It's not that minimizing, but realizing I'm not alone. Other people have this experience too, and there's nothing wrong with me. We're all in this together. And then the third step is self-kindness. How would I respond to my dearest loved one in this same situation, having these same feelings? How would I alleviate their suffering, or want or wish that their suffering be alleviated? Would I wish them well-being? Would I wish them kindness and gentleness? Would I put an arm around their shoulder? Would I give them a hug? Would I write them a beautiful card saying, yeah, I hope you get through this. I'm with you. It's actively soothing and comforting. What would I need? A Afghan to wrap around me, that inner cup of tea that's so warm and soothing and comforting. A hug, can I pat myself on the back? Can I hold my own hand? And a lot of these are really important, to give yourself that physical contact when you can't get a hug from somebody else. And you can do it in public. Nobody thinks it looks that odd, You could put your hand on your arm. There, dear. I'm rubbing my arm here. Or your hand over your heart. Okay, this is tough. It really hurts. You can get through this. And what words would you use for that comfort? So, just a brief trial of that. Think about something that was a little bit of suffering today. Maybe even getting out of bed when you had to toss off those warm covers and step into a colder room. Or something that didn't go right, or a mistake you all may have made in the last few days. Not the biggest thing in the world, something little, just a little ouch. And just think about, oh yeah, that did hurt a little. I was harsh with myself. Notice that. I did get a bit angry at that. Yeah, okay. I'm not alone. Everybody screws up. Everybody is harsh to themselves at some time. Everybody says the wrong thing. Everybody experiences hurt. You're part of the human condition. And what words or images might you use to bring yourself a little bit of comfort and ease and tenderness to address that little bit of suffering, that tiny ouch? And you might even bring your hands over your heart. There, dear. You're okay just as you are. We'll get through it. Come on in, have a sip of tea. I love you just as you are. And then return to the world as it is, just as it is. But we can do that, noticing, being part of the human condition, and providing ourselves some comfort. And so many of our clients never learned how to soothe themselves, didn't grow up in a holding environment that was conducive to learning that I'm okay, just as I am. And that's what we can help our clients with. The addiction is this misguided self-compassion. It's really trying to achieve mindlessness so I don't have to think or feel about anything, rather than mindfulness, which is really paying attention. Wanting to ease pain and suffering by avoiding or pushing it away, but then it only pushes back. And it's about feeling good versus self-kindness, wanting to have pleasure, which is very motivating. And rather than wanting just to treat myself kindly. Disconnection versus common humanity. Um, so helping our clients learn other ways to deal with their suffering that can be sustainable and lead to increased well-being. So we practice this already. This is a moment of suffering. And finding that language that speaks authentically to you. Ouch, this hurts, that stinks. I don't like it, whatever. And realize suffering is part of what we all experience. I'm not alone, we all struggle. Whatever words resonate with you, and try out a bunch of phrases. Oh yeah, that connects. And may I be kind to myself. Let me have some compassion here at home first. Can I forgive myself? Can I be strong and safe? May I be peaceful? May we all live in peace. So rather than pushing away and trying to keep the door shut and not let any of that painful stuff in, developing a welcoming, embracing, interested attitude toward those things that we suffer with, that we suffer over, towards things like cravings. Don't try to push them out and keep them out and shutter the doors and the windows and don't let anything in. We want to refresh our atmosphere, open up those windows, see the light, see what's going on out there, even if it's a bit scary. Learn how to welcome everything that shows up. And I love this phrase, what I resist persists. So the more I push, the more that other stuff pushes back. The opposite of mindfulness, not wanting to be aware of present moment experience and judging it as bad, as wrong, as not wanted, not helpful. And there are all sorts of forms: desire, craving, wanting, all the addictions, aversion, pushing away, tension, anger, restlessness, agitation, mind wandering, distraction, sloth and torpor, dullness, sleepiness. We see that with depression. We see the restlessness and agitation with anxiety. Doubt, questioning, is it worth it? Am I on the right track? Am I ever going to be able to get this? And how many times in recovery, sitting in a meeting, it's like, oh, they're all doing so much better than I am. I'm never going to get this. or if we, getting our degrees, oh my goodness, I'm never going to get through this. And that's doubt, and recognizing it as a form of suffering and resistance. And suffering equals the pain I feel, which is going to be there, multiplied by how much I'm resisting it. So I only increase my suffering the more I resist. But what we feel, we can heal. So feeling plus self-compassion, or my pain plus that kindness, equals relief from suffering. That's what I have control of. That's what I can do something about. How to manage. It's not emotions we need to get rid of. Like, I don't need to get rid of my anger or my anxiety or my fear or my resentment, but I need to change my relationship to those things. We need to look at our responses to those difficult, challenging emotions and develop a repertoire of responses that can be more helpful. Discriminating here. I'm not judging, but is this reaction helpful or not helpful? If it's not helpful, let me see if I can cultivate a different response. And helping cultivate awareness, a mindfulness of emotions. Again, name it, see it, acknowledge it, create some space where it can reside so I can understand it better in a non-self-referential way. It's not my anger that I need to cling to. It's just anger that's chosen to show up today. Just anger. And I can learn something from that anger. I can increase and enhance my wisdom from that anger if I don't try to lock it up or push it down, or if I don't cling to it and become stuck on it. I can let go of the anger story and reframe myself and become more aware of my embodied experience of how I resonate when anger decides to be present and show up, and what I can do with that. And so this poem, The Guest House, kind of summarizes this perspective. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. It may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guest from beyond. And it takes light to show the shadows, and when we stop our addictive process, or when we decide to cultivate the light of awareness, we become aware not only of those sustainable qualities we want to cultivate, but also of our dark sides. And we have to be ready for that and aware that the pain can come up. And often with clients, this happens. I stop gambling and I feel all my fear and anxiety or my anger. Well, that gives us the opportunity to show some light on that so we can explore it more fully, if we can come from that holding place where we don't have to be afraid of those shadows, those darknesses that we may encounter. And this is an exercise that we probably don't have time for, but play around with this. This is sitting with another person And you can have that person close their eyes while you just think and focus towards them, orient towards that other person, thinking about this is a person just like me. This is a person who was born the same way I was born, kicking and screaming, vulnerable and naked, who somehow learned to walk, to crawl and fall down and get up again, and to formulate words and thoughts, and who walked out into the world making friends, liking some people and not being liked by some people, making mistakes, correcting those mistakes, learning how to get through life, how to decide what kind of person to be, who learned how to love and be loved and to lose love, how to laugh and to cry, how to succeed and fail, how to care about other beings, and how to overcome shutting other beings out. This is a person just like me, trying to figure out how to make it through this crazy world on fire. And then you switch roles, so you send those thoughts or receive those thoughts from the other person. It's lovely in working with couples or just working with individuals to really experience a sense of common humanity. We've been through the same developmental stages. We've wanted the same things at various points in our lives. We screw up and we succeed and we fail, and it's part of the human condition. So it's an exercise in that. What does it feel like to experience some compassion, some relatedness? And often many of our clients really struggle with that, as do we. Traditionally in the compassion or loving kindness practices, in the East, you start with yourself as the easiest person to start with. For many of us, that's the hardest person to start with. So we start with where our clients or we are at. Who can you feel most unambivalently loving towards? Could be your pet, could be a person you just imagined. Start there, and then we'll build on that. And how we can have some balance in our lives. Balance or equanimity means facing pain and pleasure, joy and sorrow in such a way that our hearts can be open to both, whole and intact. Now, this is postgraduate school, multiple fellowship practice. This is where we start. And, we can just working towards having a bit of that equanimity where I can face the joys and sorrows of my life with some sense of stability and balance. We can recognize what is true, even if painful, and also know some peace and acceptance. It was a quote from Sharon Salzberg, who's one of my favorite teachers on loving kindness. And we can just develop our own self-caring intentions, not fake intentions, not fake affirmations, flowery phrases that we're just going to say until we beat ourselves up enough with them. No. What resonates with you? What do you want your intention to be? May I be open and receptive? May I surrender to new possibilities? May I be safe and secure and prepared for growing. May I be funny and full of life. May I have more joy in my life. May I be enthusiastic and feel alive. May I be happy and healthy because of my self-care. May I let go of my stories of the past and the pain. May I have wonderfully supportive people in my life. May I recognize and appreciate the uniqueness of others and practice gratitude and forgiveness and take really good care of myself because I deserve it. So create your own self-caring intentions and savoring. I love this quote from Jimmy V. To me, there are 3 things everyone should do every day. Number 1 is laugh. Number 2 is think. Spend some time in thought or quiet reflection. Number 3, you should have your emotions move you to tears. If you laugh, think, and cry, that's a heck of a day. So think about what made me happy today. Where did I experience comfort and balance? And who or what inspired me? And from Joanna Macy, if we can be fearless to be with our pain, it turns. When we look at it, when we take it in our hands, when we can just be with it and keep breathing, then it turns. It turns to reveal its other face. And the other face of our pain for the world is our love for the world, our absolute, inseparable connectedness and interbeing with all of life. So may you have lots and lots of connectedness with yourself and all of life. Thank you so much for your attention. And I don't know if there's any time for comments or questions.
Yeah, we will take a few moments for some questions. I am first going to first thank you, Dr. Rugle, so much for all of the valuable information that you've provided us today. I am going to launch a poll question, and this is just going to be for attendance verification. And so I will leave that open for a few moments. I'll also put that poll question into the chat box as well for those who are unable to view it outside of the chat box. Again, if your Zoom screen is in full screen mode, then you might not be able to interact with the poll. But so make sure your Zoom is not in full screen and you'll be able to see the poll. I will leave that open for a few moments here, and we can start with some questions. Again, I wanted to first say thank you again, Lori, for bringing such valuable information and peace to our attendees today. I am personally, and I think a lot of others are intrigued by Eastern philosophy and spirituality, but I've never truly practiced. I'll listen to either you speak or listen to like podcasts with Jack Cornfield and start trying to implement some of these practices in my daily life. But before too long, I feel like the habit just doesn't really stick. I feel like others in the chat have expressed getting away from the practice as well and wanting to have you on repeat throughout their lives every day. So how can individuals start and continue mindful practice in this world that's just so full of noise with notifications, alerts, and even like these continuing blurred lines between work and home?
Yeah, you know, it's simple but not easy. You know, it was easier, you know, when he could go off and be a monk for a few years, you know, and not worry about the kids and the homework and the Zooms and all of that stuff. So it's really challenging in our world as it is. And so making a conscious intention, and again, it's not starting out by sitting on a cushion for hours at a time. You know, put a little reminder on your smartwatch or, you know, on your phone, you know, a timer that goes off. Take a breath. And it really is about just remembering to take a breath and then giving yourself credit for it, noticing, I was just aware that I took a breath. That's so cool. And that will help build new habit patterns. So starting out really small. and there are, wonderful apps, Insight Timer, there's one, Breath to Breath, where you can put, 5-minute meditations on your phone. You could go in the bathroom, lock the door so the kids can't come in and take a couple of minutes, but if you can, set up a space for your practice. Make it your conscious intention to get a little bit better, starting out with a few minutes at a time, and with supported meditations work really well, and there are so many out there. So explore YouTube and Insight Timer and find what resonates for you as a starting place.
And we had another question come in relative to meditation often being recommended as a self-care activity. At the same time, someone with an unaddressed emotional distress might have a response of high emotions during
Sure.
meditation. Can you comment on this, or ideas on how folks can engage in meditative practice and be aware of that potential effect?
Sure. I mean, that's why, certainly having a coach or a mentor or a teacher can be very helpful, especially, if you have some challenges or some places you don't want to go. And that's what that holding environment is about. Because you can get backdraft very quickly, like opening the door and the fire comes raging out. So you really want to start by the grounding practices, knowing that I can come back and ground myself, that I'm the one in control here, that I can come back and feel stable and steady and be in this place, in this room, connected to this seat. If things get a little too intense, it's really, really important to have that foundation to come back to, because for all of us, things get shaky at times. We'll get into some memory that will decide to become present that creates a shame storm that really rattles, us to our depth. And we have to come back to that, okay, ground, settle, soothe, calm, breathe, and have that foundation of practice that says, yeah, okay, you're a good person. That was a shakeup. Let me come back to where I can comfort and hold myself kindly. So we build with our clients that foundation, that can allow them to explore, some of the deeper, darker crevices that we all have.
And just one last question about working with with using mindfulness and when working with someone who has attention deficit disorder or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
Yeah, it's possible. I've worked with many, many clients. And again, like with other things, you chunk it down. Just one breath. Just one breath. Notice the hyperactive mind, and that you can bring it back for a breath. Not for 5